Dear students, today we are going to study a new poem, The Patriot, written by Robert Browning. The poem, The Patriot by Robert Browning, is a classical example of the technique that Browning is known for, that is, the dramatic monologue. Browning's poems flourish on the drama of the expression of the one's psychic in turmoil. Thereby, at the onset of the poem, we find a dejected man reminiscing his past glories only to unfold before the reader his present state of misery. Moving to the theme of the poem revolves around rise and fall of one's fortunes. The same people who one day lift someone to the skies also pull that person right down to the dust. Someone who is loved today may easily be hated tomorrow. Betrayal is the another theme in the poem. Trust in God and the hope of justice in the hands of God raises the spirit of the patriot and brings about a spirit of optimism at the end.
It was roses, roses, all the way. With myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roof seemed to heave and sway. The church spires flamed, such flags they had. A year ago on this very day.
In the first stanza, we find glory and grandeur in the display, the memory of which the speaker seems to have been extremely fond of an elevated individual, recalling his past glories. The enigma of it is expressed in this section. The description of each notion of the bells ringing or the cries of the people have been vividly dramatized with the phrases used for exaggeration, and one really dwells in the exaggeration to understand the sentiment of the patriot. The patriot describes an event which had occurred a year ago on that very same day as the poet is recalling. The event seems to have been a grand public welcoming of the patriot as his walking path was covered with an unending number of roses. People were standing on the roofs to cheer for him, but there were too many, which caused the patriot to think that the roofs were swaying. Even the spires of the church were covered with the flaming flags. Thus, it must have been a celebration of great honor and dignity for the patriot who must have done a deed unfathomable.
The air broke into a mist with bells. The old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise repels. But give me your son from yonder skies. They had answered, and afterward, what else?
The patriot continues to talk of the event that was clearly deep-seated in his memory. The people were ringing the bells so loudly that the atmosphere had grown thick with the noise. Since they seemed to have been standing in some old structure, the cries of the people seems to have been rocking the walls. Such was the devotion of the people towards him, that even if he had wanted the sun of their skies, that is, the very thing that sustains them, they would have given it to him and would have still asked if he wanted anything more. The level of public devotion and the patriot's degree of popularity comes into the display in the poem.
Alack, it was I who leaped at the sun, to give it my loving friends to keep. Naught men could do, have I left undone. And you see my harvest, what I reap, this very day, now a year is run.
The poet remembers the sacrifices committed for his country. With a sigh, the speaker admits that, like the mythological Icarus, the speaker becomes more ambitious than his situation permitted him. Giving his loving friends to keep suggests that some deaths may have taken place because of his actions. Though he stresses on the fact that he did everything he could to make things right. He further stresses on his much undeserved end, and that is where his flashback comes to a closure in this stanza.
There's nobody on the housetops now. Just a palsied few at the window set. For the best of the sight is, I'll allow, at the shambles gate or, better yet, by the very scaffold's foot, I trow.
The stanza marks the speaker's return to this present situation. As opposed to the setting in the first two stanzas, the situation, a year later, is that of misery and some lonesomeness as the speaker is being led to the gallows of death after his conviction. Only the palisade old seems to be watching from their windows. Maybe because no one wants to see his death that no one show up when he is being led to the shambles gate. People want to be where there is action, and so the speaker further nostalgically strikes that the best sight would be at the gate of the slaughterhouse or the foot of the scaffold.
I go in the rain, and, more than needs, a rope cuts both my wrists behind. And I think, by the feel, my forehead bleeds. For they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me for my year's misdeeds.
The miseries of the speaker are revealed throughout the poem. The poet is being led to the gallows. It is raining, and the tied rope seems to be cutting through his wrist. His wounds are the result of the stones being thrown at him by the people standing along the path. The speaker reaches the peak of humiliation when a stone is thrown at him for all that he has done since the last year, that is, for his misdeeds. There is no clarity in this stanza about the reasons, but gives a description of the poet's walk of shame.
Thus I entered, and thus I go. In triumphs, people have dropped down dead, paid by the world, what dost thou owe me? God might question, now instead. 'Tis God shall repay, I am safer so.
The last stanza reflects on the patriot's death. This concluding stanza of the poem begins with the patriot declaring that last year when he had entered his city with a great applause as a celebrity, a hero, now he is walking through the same street in the great humiliation and insult. He says that in his times people dropped him dead. That is what he has done for his people is a triumph for him, though they have persecuted him for the same. Though the speaker feels that God would be fair to him as he has been the witness of it all. The patriot feels optimistic that he will be rewarded by God in heaven. He feels safe when he is in the lap of God and his real repayment will be done by him. Here we see Browning's optimistic philosophy of life. Now let us revise the poem. Thank you.